She sits alone at a diner counter, quiet and contained. Most people walk past without noticing her. The limping woman in the faded jacket with tired eyes. But tonight, 7 bikers notice. They mock her silence, tug at the patch on her sleeve, laugh at her military bearing. When she finally speaks, it's just one sentence. "You've got 20 minutes before this place gets real crowded." They call her bluff and leave. 20 minutes later, black SUVs surround the diner. 6 men in civilian clothes enter. Their leader scans the room and asks only, "Where is she?" From which city in the world are you watching this video today? If you enjoy stories of quiet strength and unexpected revelations, subscribe for more untold stories that remind us heroes often walk among us unnoticed. The neon sign outside the Last Stop diner flickered in the gathering dusk, casting alternating shadows across the cracked asphalt parking lot. Located on the forgotten stretch of Highway 16 outside Meridian Falls, the diner existed in a perpetual time capsule of 1970s Americana, vinyl booths worn thin from decades of shifting weight, countertops stained with countless coffee rings, and wood-paneled walls yellowed from years of cigarette smoke, despite the no smoking sign that had been posted for nearly a decade. Rain pattered against the large windows, distorting the headlights of passing trucks into elongated streaks of yellow. Inside, the fluorescent lights hummed with inconsistent intensity, occasionally dimming, as if taking labored breaths. Merrick Thorne occupied the same corner stool she had claimed every evening for the past 8 months. Her slender frame belied the toned muscles visible beneath her faded navy jacket. She sat with military precision, spine straight, shoulders square, eyes constantly monitoring the entrance. The counter afforded her a clear sightline to both the front door and the kitchen exit. Her right leg remained planted firmly on the floor, while her left extended awkwardly, betraying a pronounced limp she made no effort to conceal. The plate before her contained the same meal she ordered every night: meatloaf, mashed potatoes, and green beans arranged in separate quadrants, nothing touching. She ate methodically, taking measured bites between which she would sketch in a weathered leather-bound notebook. The drawings appeared technical in nature, intricate schematics with precise measurements noted in cramped handwriting along the margins. "More coffee, hun." Juniper Reeves, the diner's longtime waitress and unofficial matriarch, approached with a steaming pot. In her early 60s with steel-gray hair pulled into a tight bun, Juniper had the weary eyes of someone who had seen too much and expected little. Yet there was something in the way she addressed Merrick, a subtle deference that contradicted her otherwise no-nonsense demeanor. Merrick nodded once, sliding her mug forward without looking up from her notebook. "Quiet night," Juniper remarked, filling the cup. "Storm's keeping folks home." Another nod from Merrick. Juniper lingered a moment longer than necessary before moving away to attend to the only other occupied table, an elderly couple passing through town on their way to visit grandchildren. The relationship between Merrick and Juniper existed in a strange limbo of familiarity without friendship. They rarely exchanged more than a dozen words on any given evening, yet Juniper knew exactly how Merrick took her coffee: black, what she ate, the same meal always, and that she preferred silence to small talk. More importantly, Juniper never asked the questions that clearly burned in the minds of other regulars. About the limp, about the scars visible on Merrick's hands, about why someone with such obvious military bearing would choose to spend every evening alone in a roadside diner in the middle of nowhere. The bell above the door chimed as a young woman hurried in, shaking raindrops from her auburn hair. "Sorry I'm late, Juniper," she called, tying an apron around her waist. "Car wouldn't start again." "Third time this week, Wren," Juniper replied without heat. "Table 6 needs refills." Wren Holloway, 19 and newly hired, moved with the barely contained energy of youth. She navigated the narrow spaces between tables with practiced ease despite her recent employment. Unlike Juniper, Wren's curiosity remained unchecked by experience or discretion. "She's here again," Wren whispered as she passed behind Juniper at the service counter, nodding toward Merrick. "Same seat, same food, same everything." "Mind your business," Juniper murmured. "Some folks appreciate their privacy." "But don't you wonder?" Wren persisted. "Why does she always sit facing the door? And have you noticed how she checks everyone who comes in? Like she's memorizing faces or something." Juniper's response was firm. "Some habits don't break easy. Leave her be." The conversation, though hushed, carried in the quiet diner. Merrick gave no indication she heard, but her pencil paused momentarily over her notebook before resuming its precise movements. As she shifted to turn a page, her sleeve rode up, revealing a long, jagged scar that ran from wrist to elbow on her left arm. Beside it, partially obscured by the fabric, was what appeared to be an insignia. Not standard military issue, but something custom, stitched directly onto her skin rather than a uniform. The glimpse lasted only seconds before she adjusted her sleeve, concealing both scar and marking. Rain intensified outside, drumming against the roof with increasing urgency. Merrick checked her watch, an austere black timepiece with no visible brand markings, only a small red indicator light currently dormant. Then closed her notebook and reached for the steel money clip in her jacket pocket. She placed exact change on the counter, including a generous but not ostentatious tip. The ritual was as familiar as everything else about her routine, down to the precise number of steps it would take her to reach the door, accounting for her limp. Tonight, however, the routine was interrupted. The sound came first, the distinctive rumble of multiple motorcycles approaching at speed, engines straining against the weather. Headlights swept across the interior as 7 bikes pulled into the parking lot, their riders dismounting with the exaggerated confidence of men who believe volume equated to authority. Merrick's hand hesitated over her money. For the first time since entering the diner, her expression changed. Not fear, but something closer to resignation, as if confrontation was an inevitability she had temporarily outrun but never expected to avoid completely. Juniper moved closer, ostensibly to collect the payment. "Back door's unlocked," she said quietly. "If you want to avoid trouble." Merrick shook her head once. "Trouble finds its own way in." The diner door burst open with unnecessary force. 7 men entered in a wave of leather, denim, and rain. Their cuts identified them as the Ravagers, a motorcycle club with delusions of being an outlaw gang despite most members holding respectable day jobs in construction or sales. Weekend warriors playing at rebellion. Leading them was Drake Harlow, mid-40s with a physique that spoke of former military discipline now surrendered to civilian indulgence. His beard was meticulously groomed despite his otherwise disheveled appearance, and a faded army tattoo peeked from beneath his sleeve. Whatever service he had provided his country, it had clearly ended less honorably than it began. "God damn weather," Drake announced to the room at large, shaking water from his leather jacket. "Juniper, coffee all around. Make it Irish if you catch my meaning." His gaze swept the diner, taking inventory of the limited clientele before landing on Merrick. Something in her posture, the military precision she made no effort to disguise, caught his attention like a burr. "Well, look what we have here," he said, nudging his second-in-command, a man who went by Axel despite the Mercedes key fob visible in his pocket. "Someone's a long way from base." Merrick resumed her meal, each bite as measured as before. The only acknowledgement of the newcomers was a slight tension across her shoulders, visible only to those trained to recognize the preparation for potential action. Drake and his companions claimed the large corner booth, their voices deliberately loud as they discussed their ride and their plans for continuing to a bar across the county line, known for lax closing times. Alcohol was already evident in their movements, slightly exaggerated gestures, loosened inhibitions. They had been drinking before arrival and showed no inclination toward moderation. Wren approached their table with visible reluctance, taking their orders with professional politeness despite the unnecessarily crude remarks directed her way. Juniper watched from behind the counter, one hand resting near the phone. "Don't cause trouble tonight, Drake," she warned as he approached the counter for napkins. "Just have your coffee and move on." Drake offered an exaggerated bow. "Yes, ma'am. We're just warming up before continuing our journey. No intention of disturbing your fine establishment." The mock respect might have been convincing if not for the way his gaze drifted again to Merrick, a calculation forming behind the artificial joviality. As Juniper returned to the kitchen, Drake made a deliberate detour past Merrick's stool. His trajectory, too precise to be accidental, brought his shoulder directly into contact with hers. Coffee sloshed from Merrick's cup onto the counter. "Didn't see you there, soldier girl," Drake said with exaggerated surprise. "What's your deal anyway? Too good to look at us?" The diner went quiet. Even the elderly couple paused mid-conversation to observe the developing confrontation. Merrick remained silent, reaching for a napkin to methodically clean the spilled coffee. Her movements were precise, economical, and utterly calm. The actions of someone who had faced far worse than an intoxicated biker with something to prove. This apparent dismissal only intensified Drake's focus. Men like him required reaction, needed their provocations acknowledged to feel effective. Silence was more challenging than any retort. "Asked you a question," he pressed, leaning closer. "What unit were you with? Must not have been anywhere that saw action, considering how jumpy you are around a little noise." Still no response. Merrick's attention remained fixed on her task, as if Drake were no more significant than the rain outside. Axel joined his leader, drawn by the potential for entertainment. His attention caught on Merrick's notebook, still open to a page filled with schematics. "What's this?" he asked, reaching for it. "Drawing up battle plans?" In the first display of truly quick movement, Merrick closed the notebook before his fingers could make contact. The action was smooth, controlled, but unmistakably deliberate, not panic or fear, but the calm assertion of a boundary. What Axel had glimpsed in that brief moment wasn't immediately identifiable, not standard weapons designs, but something more complex. Integrated systems with biomechanical elements, equations running along the margins in a shorthand notation unfamiliar to civilian engineering. Drake's hand reached for the notebook Merrick had now tucked beside her plate. The movement was telegraphed, almost performative in its aggression. A man used to intimidation rather than true combat. The diner's atmosphere shifted, temperature unchanged, yet suddenly every surface seemed charged with potential energy. Juniper froze mid-step, a coffee pot suspended between counter and service station. Wren backed against the wall, instinctively removing herself from whatever was about to unfold. As Drake's fingers brushed the leather cover, the camera would have captured the almost imperceptible change in Merrick's expression. Not anger or fear, but a cold calculation taking hold. Simultaneously, a small light on her watch pulsed once, a silent acknowledgement of crossed thresholds. "That would be your second mistake," Merrick said, her voice unexpectedly soft, but carrying the absolute clarity of command. It was the first time she had spoken above a whisper within the diner, and the effect was immediate. Even Drake hesitated, hands still extended, but progress arrested by surprise. "And what was my first?" he asked, recovering quickly but already on defensive footing, having expected either submission or blustering resistance, not this calm assertion of control. Merrick's gaze lifted to meet his directly for the first time. Her eyes, gray as gunmetal, revealed nothing except absolute certainty. "Walking through that door." The words hung in the air, unadorned by threat or emotion, yet somehow more effective for their simplicity. Several of Drake's companions shifted uncomfortably, suddenly aware they had miscalculated something fundamental about the woman before them. Drake, however, was committed to his course. Backing down now would cost him authority among his followers. He laughed, a forced sound that echoed unnaturally in the silent diner. "Pretty bold for someone outnumbered 7-1, he observed, straightening to his full height. "What are you gonna do? Call for backup? Radio in an airstrike on Juniper's diner?" The mockery found no purchase. Merrick simply returned her attention to her coffee, dismissing him as effectively as if he had ceased to exist. This, more than any response, ignited genuine anger. Drake's facade of amused superiority cracked, revealing the insecurity beneath. He moved closer, deliberately invading her personal space. "What unit were you with?" he demanded again, voice hardening. "Probably kitchen staff, right? Playing dress-up soldier? I was 3rd Infantry Division, saw actual combat while people like you served coffee at headquarters." It was a lie. Anyone with genuine service experience would have recognized it immediately, but Drake counted on civilian ignorance to bolster his stolen valor. Merrick stood, the movement smooth despite her obvious limp. She reached for her jacket, clearly intending to leave rather than engage further. This rational de-escalation only fueled Drake's determination to provoke a reaction. He stepped directly into her path, his companions moving to flank him in practiced formation. The elderly couple hurriedly paid their bill and departed, sensing the inevitable escalation. "Leaving so soon?" Drake taunted. "We're just getting acquainted." Merrick's eyes performed a rapid assessment. Distances, positions, potential weapons, exits. It wasn't the panicked calculation of someone seeking escape, but the professional evaluation of a tactician considering optimal approaches. Juniper attempted. Intervention, moving from behind the counter with surprising speed for her age. That's enough, Drake. She's a paying customer, same as you. Stay out of this, Juniper, Drake warned without looking away from Merrick. Just curious about our local hero here. Wants to sit in here every night looking down on everyone with that military stick up her ass. Figure she owes us some conversation at least. She doesn't owe you anything, Juniper insisted, positioning herself between them. Drake pushed her aside, not violently but with enough force to make his dismissal clear. The action crossed a line, disrespect transforming into potential danger. Merrick's right hand touched the countertop, fingers splaying slightly as if testing its stability. When they settled, a subtle vibration traveled from her watch through her wrist and into her palm. A technological response to an unspoken command. Move aside, she said to Drake, voice unchanged in volume, but now carrying an undercurrent of something that made two of his companions step back instinctively. Or what? Drake challenged, emboldened by alcohol and an audience. His gaze dropped to her left arm, where her sleeve had again shifted to partially reveal the unusual insignia. With surprising quickness, he grabbed her wrist, turning it to expose the marking. Let's see what kind of hero you really are, he said, tugging the fabric. What's this supposed to be? Some special forces patch you bought online? The insignia tore partially as the fabric gave way. What became visible wasn't standard military identification, no conventional unit designation or rank indicator. Instead, it appeared to be a custom design, incorporating elements of advanced technology with ancient symbolism. A quantum circuit pattern surrounding what resembled a phoenix, all rendered in black and silver, directly onto her skin, through some method more permanent than tattoo, but more flexible than scarification. The room went suddenly, completely silent. Even the rain seemed to pause. Juniper, still recovering her balance from being pushed aside, whispered urgently, "Stop! You don't know who she is." Drake laughed, though the sound contained less confidence than before. "And who exactly is she?" Merrick finally looked up, her expression unchanged but somehow more focused, like a lens adjusting to bring a target into perfect clarity. "You've got about 20 minutes before this place gets real crowded," she said quietly. The smallest member of Drake's group, a wiry man called Lark, who had remained largely silent throughout the confrontation, suddenly paled. Unlike the others, something about Merrick's statement registered as significant, a recognition that escaped his companions. "Drake," he said, voice uncertain. "Maybe we should go." "Go?" Drake echoed incredulously. "Because Little Miss Special Forces here is threatening us with imaginary backup? In case you haven't noticed, we're 30 miles from the nearest military installation, and I doubt she's got a battalion on speed dial." He turned back to Merrick with renewed bravado. "Nice bluff, soldier girl. Let me guess, Navy SEAL, Green Beret, or maybe one of those secret black ops warriors Hollywood loves so much." Merrick didn't respond, simply maintained eye contact with an unnerving steadiness. After a moment of this silent standoff, Drake's discomfort became evident despite his continued laughter. "Come on, boys, let's leave G.I. Jane to her coffee. Some people can't take a joke." With exaggerated mock salutes and continued commentary, the bikers moved toward the exit. Drake, determined to have the last word, turned at the door. "If your imaginary friends show up, tell them the Ravagers said hello. We'll be at Buckley's down the highway if they want to discuss manners." With that parting shot, they departed into the rain. Through the windows, their continued laughter was visible if not audible as they mounted their motorcycles. Inside, the diner remained unnaturally quiet. The few remaining customers stared at Merrick with a mixture of curiosity, concern, and in some cases, newfound wariness. To their collective surprise, she calmly returned to her stool and resumed eating, movements as measured as before. The only indication that anything unusual had occurred was a slight adjustment to her sleeve, concealing once more the torn insignia and whatever it represented. Juniper approached cautiously, coffee pot still in hand, though she made no move to refill Merrick's cup. "Should I call someone?" she asked quietly. "Already done," Merrick replied without elaboration. As if in confirmation, the small light on her watch pulsed softly. Not a single acknowledgement this time, but a continuous rhythmic signal. Activation rather than alert. The elderly couple who had hurriedly departed during the confrontation had been replaced by a lone trucker who kept glancing nervously between Merrick and the door. Wren emerged from the kitchen, where she had retreated during the height of the tension, eyes wide with unasked questions. For those watching closely, the briefest flash of something else might have been visible in Merrick's expression. Not concern for her own safety, but a weariness that suggested this was not the first such confrontation she had endured, nor likely the last. A resigned acknowledgement that anonymity, however carefully cultivated, remained perpetually fragile. Outside, the Ravagers lingered in the parking lot, reluctant to depart immediately despite their proclaimed destination elsewhere. Their continued presence suggested the confrontation might not be truly concluded, a possibility Merrick seemed to have anticipated. As she sipped her now cooling coffee, time ticked forward on her unusual watch, an internal countdown visible only to her, but nonetheless progressing with military precision toward whatever 20-minute deadline she had referenced. The question that hung in the air, unspoken but unavoidable: what exactly would happen when those 20 minutes expired? Have you ever noticed how the quietest person in the room is often the one with the most significant past? What would you do if you were Merrick in this situation? Let us know in the comments and subscribe to witness what happens when underestimation meets revelation in part 2 of this story. 19 minutes and 37 seconds remained on Merrick's internal countdown when the first customer left. The middle-aged man in a trucker's cap, who had been nursing a slice of apple pie, made a show of checking his watch, leaving an unnecessarily large tip, and exiting without making eye contact with anyone. His departure created a ripple effect. Within minutes, only Merrick, Juniper, Wren, and an elderly man reading a newspaper remained in the diner. Outside, the Ravagers continued their performative loitering. They had moved their motorcycles under the diner's awning, ostensibly to escape the rain, but effectively blocking the main entrance. Drake's voice carried through the glass as he recounted his version of the confrontation to his increasingly intoxicated companions. Juniper locked the cash register with deliberate movements. "Closing early tonight," she announced to no one in particular. Wren glanced anxiously between her employer and Merrick. "Should I call the sheriff?" "Sheriff's office is understaffed and 20 minutes out," Juniper replied, with the resigned knowledge of someone long accustomed to self-reliance. "By the time Brannigan gets here, this will all be over one way or another." The ambiguity of that statement hung in the air, a counterpoint to the rhythmic tapping of rain against the windows. Merrick had returned to her notebook, seemingly absorbed in her technical drawings despite the tension surrounding her. The only indication that she registered anything unusual was the occasional glance at her watch, tracking the countdown only she could see. 16 minutes. The elderly man folded his newspaper, left exact change on his table, and departed through the kitchen's rear exit after a knowing nod from Juniper. His absence left the diner feeling larger yet more confined. Empty space amplifying every sound. The hum of fluorescent lights, the steady drip from a leaky faucet, the muffled laughter of the bikers outside. Juniper moved methodically through closing procedures despite the early hour. She rotated the open sign to closed, though this did little to deter the Ravagers, who clearly had no intention of departing. She wiped down tables with practiced efficiency, her movements betraying years of the same routine, yet maintaining a heightened awareness of her surroundings. Wren hovered uncertainly by the service station. "Should I finish my side work?" "Go home, Wren," Juniper said, her tone gentle but firm. "Take my car. I'll get a ride later." Confusion flickered across the younger woman's face. "But your car is in the shop. That's why. You've been walking to work all week." Juniper paused mid-motion, the inconsistency in her statement registering briefly before she recovered. "Right. Then stay in the kitchen. Whatever happens, stay out of sight." This direction, delivered with unexpected authority, prompted Wren to comply without further question. She retreated through the swinging doors, leaving Juniper and Merrick alone in the dining area. 11 minutes. Outside, the Ravagers had grown more restless. Drake paced the perimeter of the diner, peering through windows with exaggerated menace. Two of his companions had retreated to their motorcycles, engines idling as if preparing for swift departure. The others maintained their position by the entrance, passing a flask between them. Lark, the smallest member who had advocated for leaving earlier, stood apart from the group. His attention remained fixed on the diner's interior, specifically on Merrick. Unlike his companions, his expression conveyed not mockery, but growing concern, perhaps even recognition. Inside, Juniper approached Merrick's position at the counter. For the first time, she took the adjacent stool rather than maintaining the professional distance of server and customer. "They're not leaving," she observed quietly. Merrick nodded once, closing her notebook with finality. "They will. When your friends arrive?" A pause. "Not friends." This simple correction contained volumes, a distinction between alliance and friendship, between professional obligation and personal connection. Whatever relationship Merrick had with the individuals she expected, it existed in a realm beyond conventional social bonds. Juniper's weathered hand moved across the counter, not quite touching Merrick's, but close enough to suggest solidarity. "Been a while since we had excitement around here, not since that business with the federal marshals last year." The reference seemed deliberately casual, yet laden with significance, as if testing boundaries of shared knowledge. Merrick's response was equally measured. "Wasn't here then." "No, but similar types were." Juniper's gaze remained fixed on the bikers outside. "Government types have a certain look about them, even when they try not to." The observation hung between them, neither confirmation nor denial, requested or offered. 8 minutes. Drake's patience had evidently expired. He approached the front door, trying the handle despite the close sign. Finding it locked, he pounded on the glass with unnecessary force. "Hey, Juniper! Since when do you close before midnight?" His voice, though muffled by the door, carried clearly into the diner. "Got some unfinished business with your customer here." Juniper made no move to respond, maintaining her position beside Merrick at the counter. Drake's expression darkened. He gestured to Axel, who retrieved something from his motorcycle saddlebag, a tire iron that gleamed dully in the parking lot lights. "Don't think we're kidding around." "Any more," Drake called through the glass. "Open up, or we're coming in anyway." 5 minutes. The threat materialized as Axel positioned himself beside a side window, tire iron raised. The implied violence hung suspended for several heartbeats before Merrick broke the stillness. She stood, movements fluid despite her limp, and walked deliberately toward the door. Juniper made no move to stop her, though her expression conveyed complex layers of concern and resignation. Merrick unlocked the door with steady hands, pulling it open to face Drake directly. The unexpected compliance momentarily disrupted his aggression, forcing him to recalibrate. "Well," he recovered, "seems like Soldier Girl found her manners." Rain had plastered his hair to his forehead, undermining his attempt at intimidation. Behind him, his companions arranged themselves in a loose semicircle, their earlier bravado dampened literally and figuratively by the weather and the unexpected confrontation. 20 minutes, Merrick said simply, her voice carrying despite its quietness. "I told you 20 minutes. Drake's laugh held more confusion than humor. "Still on about that? Listen, sweetheart, nobody's coming to rescue you. It's just us out here in the middle of nowhere." Merrick's expression remained unchanged, her gaze shifting briefly to the empty highway beyond the parking lot. 3 minutes, 14 seconds. The precision of this update unsettled Drake visibly. He glanced over his shoulder, scanning the deserted road. Nothing moved except the rhythmic sweep of rain through the diner's exterior lights. "What exactly do you think is going to happen?" he demanded, uncertainty creeping into his tone. Instead of answering, Merrick turned and walked back to her stool at the counter, presenting her back to Drake with calculated dismissal. The insult, subtle but unmistakable, reignited his anger. He followed her inside, his companions trailing behind with varying degrees of enthusiasm. Lark entered last, his reluctance evident in every movement. "Think you're real smart, don't you?" Drake pressed, closing the distance to Merrick. "Playing mind games instead of just admitting you've got nothing and nobody." 2 minutes. The diner had transformed into a stage for confrontation, fluorescent lights creating harsh shadows that emphasized the tension in every face. Juniper had positioned herself behind the counter, one hand beneath the surface where a shotgun was rumored to be mounted. Drake reached for Merrick's shoulder, his patience exhausted. "Look at me when I'm talking to you." His hand never made contact. With a movement too quick to follow clearly, Merrick redirected his momentum, using minimal force to guide his reaching arm past her, while simultaneously creating distance between them. The maneuver appeared effortless, yet left Drake stumbling to regain his balance. The technical precision of this defensive movement registered with Lark, whose eyes widened in apparent recognition. "Drake!" he began, urgency clear in his voice. "We need to go. Now." "Shut up," Drake snapped, recovering his footing and his pride simultaneously. "Nobody's going anywhere until Soldier Girl here explains herself." 1 minute. Merrick checked her watch one final time. Whatever countdown had been progressing reached its conclusion, triggering a subtle shift in her posture, a transition from patient endurance to alert readiness. "Time's up," she said quietly. For several seconds, nothing happened. The anticlimactic moment stretched, rain continuing its persistent rhythm against the windows, wind occasionally rattling the door. Drake's triumphant smile began to form. "Guess your backup got lost," he taunted. The smile froze as a new sound became audible beneath the rain, the low, distinctive rumble of heavy engines. Not motorcycles, but something larger, more powerful, approaching with deliberate purpose. Lark moved to the window, peering out into the darkness. "Oh God," he whispered. "It's them." Drake joined him, disbelief transforming into confusion as headlights appeared on the highway. Not the single pair of a civilian vehicle, but multiple sets, arranged in tactical formation. 4 unmarked black SUVs and 2 military-grade Humvees, their profiles unmistakable even through the rain-streaked glass. The convoy approached without urgency, maintaining precise spacing as it turned into the diner parking lot. The vehicles deployed with choreographed efficiency, forming a perimeter around the building and the Ravagers' motorcycles. "What the hell?" Axel breathed, the tire iron now hanging forgotten at his side. From the vehicles emerged figures in civilian clothes. No uniforms, no identifying insignia, nothing to officially connect them to any government agency or military branch. Yet their bearing, their movement patterns, the way they automatically established security positions around the perimeter, all betrayed extensive tactical training. Drake's companions began retreating toward the kitchen, instinct driving them away from the windows and the exposed position they now occupied. Only Drake remained frozen in place, watching as 6 individuals detached from the larger group and approached the diner entrance. Leading them was a man in his early 50s, weathered face bearing a distinctive scar that ran from temple to jaw on the right side. His posture spoke of command experience, shoulders squared and steps measured. Despite the civilian attire, dark jacket, tactical pants, boots that prioritized function over fashion, everything about him screamed military authority. "Who are they?" Drake asked, his voice barely audible. Merrick, who had remained seated throughout this development, finally stood. "Exactly who I said would be here." The front door opened without a knock. The 6 operators entered in formation, automatically positioning themselves to control the space. No weapons were visibly drawn, yet their capacity for violence remained implicit in every calculated movement. The leader, Commander Vance, though no introductions had been made, scanned the interior with clinical efficiency. His gaze passed over the Ravagers without interest, assessing and dismissing them as inconsequential before continuing his search. When he spoke, it was a single sentence delivered with quiet authority. "Where is she?" The room seemed to part physically, attention shifting to Merrick, who stood calmly amid the tension. She offered a single nod of acknowledgement. The response was immediate and profound. All 6 operators, including their leader, snapped to attention. The salute they rendered was not the casual gesture of civilians approximating military courtesy, but the precise movement of active personnel, acknowledging superior rank. Drake stumbled backward, colliding with a table. Who are you?" he asked, the question directed at Merrick, though his eyes remained fixed on the operators. Merrick did not respond. Her silence carried more weight than any explanation could have provided. Commander Vance answered instead, his voice carrying the absolute clarity of someone accustomed to being obeyed. "Her name is Commander Thorne. You don't touch her." The revelation rippled through the diner. Even Juniper, who had maintained remarkable composure throughout the escalation, appeared surprised by the formality of the address. Whatever she had known or suspected about her regular customer, this confirmation of active command status clearly exceeded her expectations. Lark, the smallest biker who had shown recognition earlier, stepped forward with visible trepidation. His voice trembled, but held a clarity the others lacked. "Phantom 6, he said, the designation clearly significant. "You're Phantom 6, Baghdad, Kandahar. You saved my brother's unit when the extraction went sideways." The statement hung in the air, neither confirmed nor denied by Merrick or the operators. Yet its impact was undeniable, a piece falling into place within a larger puzzle still mostly obscured. For a moment, the diner existed in two temporal planes simultaneously. The present, rain-soaked bikers facing military operators in a roadside establishment, overlaid with fragmented glimpses of another reality. Merrick in combat fatigues, the same watch on her wrist, surrounded by elite personnel in a desert environment. The image flickered like interference on an analog television, there and gone too quickly to fully process. Commander Vance moved toward Merrick with deliberate steps, maintaining professional distance while clearly conveying urgency. "Ma'am," he said, voice lowered, though still audible in the silent diner. "Zodiac protocol has been activated. They found the facility." Something shifted in Merrick's expression. Not alarm, but the rapid calculation of someone assessing multiple variables simultaneously. She nodded once, her response containing layers of information beyond the simple acknowledgement. The transformation that followed was subtle yet profound. Nothing about Merrick's physical appearance changed. Same clothes, same posture, same limp, yet something fundamental altered in her presence. The civilian veneer, already thin, dissolved completely to reveal the commander beneath. Authority emanated from her not as performance, but as essential nature, a quality so intrinsic it could be temporarily concealed, but never eliminated. The operators formed a protective formation around her, not touching, but creating a human perimeter that emphasized her central importance to whatever operation had just activated. Their movements were fluid, practiced, indicating long familiarity with both the protocol and Merrick's specific security requirements. Vance issued brief instructions to his team, the economy of his language suggesting extensive shared knowledge. Secure transport, clearance alpha, route 3 unless compromised. The coding meant nothing to the civilian observers, but clearly conveyed comprehensive information to the operators, who acknowledged with minimal gestures before beginning to escort Merrick toward the exit. Drake, still reeling from the reversal of power dynamics, stumbled forward to intercept their path. Whether driven by lingering defiance or desperate need to reclaim some control, he positioned himself between Merrick and the door. "Look, I didn't know," he began, a plea for retroactive understanding. Merrick paused, studying him with clinical detachment. Not anger, not triumph, but the dispassionate evaluation of someone assessing a potential threat variable. For several heartbeats, she maintained this examination before delivering her verdict. "Next time, pick a different target." The words contained no explicit threat, yet Drake paled as if she had detailed specific consequences. He stumbled backward, clearing their path without further prompting. As the group proceeded toward the exit, Merrick paused beside Juniper. The exchange that followed was brief but laden with significance. Juniper slipped something into Merrick's hand, a small device concealed within a napkin, the transfer executed with practiced discretion. Merrick leaned closer, her voice pitched for Juniper alone, though fragments reached beyond their intended recipient. "Contingency Alpha, 72 hours. Juniper's nod conveyed complete understanding, suggesting a relationship far more complex than customer and server. Whatever connection existed between these women extended beyond the confines of the diner and into the classified world Merrick inhabited. The operators maintained their formation as they escorted Merrick outside, efficiency uncompromised by the rain that continued to fall. The convoy had maintained its perimeter, engines idling with quiet power that contrasted sharply with the ostentatious rumble of the Ravagers' motorcycles. Through the windows, the Ravagers watched as Merrick was guided to the central vehicle, not with the handling reserved for someone in custody, but with the deference accorded to command personnel. The door was held, the perimeter maintained, protocols followed with religious precision. As the convoy prepared to depart, several operators remained outside, positioned between the vehicles and the diner entrance. Their message was implicit but unmistakable. No one would interfere with their departure. Inside, the diner existed in suspended animation. No one moved, no one spoke, the collective breath seemingly held until the sound of engines faded into the distance. Drake collapsed into the nearest booth, the bravado that had defined him completely evaporated. "What just happened?" he asked no one in particular, voice hollow with shock. It was Lark who broke the silence, advancing on Drake with newfound confidence. "Do you have any idea what you just did? That woman led the mission that saved the entire 5th Division when they were pinned down outside Fallujah. My brother said she extracted 16 wounded through active insurgent territory with just her team when air support was grounded. Whether this information was accurate or embellished through multiple retellings remained unclear, but its impact was undeniable. The other bikers distanced themselves physically from Drake, as if his recklessness might prove contagious. Juniper addressed the remaining customers, her voice carrying unexpected authority. What you saw tonight never happened. You were never here. She was never here. The instruction might have seemed absurd in normal circumstances, yet no one questioned it. Something about the events they had witnessed, the abrupt intersection of civilian life with shadowy government operations, created an implicit understanding that silence was the only reasonable response. Outside, the rain continued its relentless rhythm, washing away the tire tracks left by the convoy. Nature's own method of eliminating evidence, of returning the world to apparent normalcy, despite the extraordinary events that had transpired. Through the diner's windows, the convoy could be glimpsed one final time, before disappearing around a bend in the highway. In the last vehicle, Merrick was visible for an instant, no longer the solitary figure hunched over coffee, but a commander already engaged in operational planning, secure phone to ear. The transition from cover identity to true role complete. The diner felt simultaneously emptier and more crowded in her absence, filled with questions that could neither be asked nor answered. Whatever had occurred existed in the liminal space between civilian awareness and classified operations. A glimpse behind a curtain, quickly drawn closed again. Drake stared at his hands, flexing fingers that had so casually reached for Merrick earlier. "She could have destroyed us," he said softly, the realization of his narrow escape dawning fully. "Why didn't she?" Juniper's response held the weary wisdom of someone who had witnessed far more than her role as diner waitress might suggest. Some people don't need to prove their power. They know exactly what they're capable of. This observation settled over the room, a truth extending beyond this specific encounter into broader understanding of true authority versus its performance. Outside, the Ravagers' motorcycles remained where they had been parked, yet none of their owners made any move toward them. The bravado that had fueled their earlier behavior had evaporated completely, leaving behind the uncertain reality of men confronting their own miscalculation. Dawn approached imperceptibly, the first hints of lighter gray appearing among the darker storm clouds. The rain had diminished to a gentle patter, no longer driving, but persistent. Nature's subtle reminder that it outlasted all human dramas enacted beneath its canopy. Inside the diner, now empty except for Juniper, who had refused all offers of companionship, preparations continued for the coming day as if nothing unusual had occurred. Tables wiped down, coffee brewed, menus arranged, the ritual of normalcy maintained despite extraordinary circumstances. A military helicopter passed overhead, its distinctive sound briefly drawing Juniper's attention to the ceiling before she resumed her tasks. Whether connected to the night's events or merely coincidental remained ambiguous. Yet her lack of surprise suggested familiarity with such occurrences. On the counter where Merrick had sat for so many evenings lay her notebook, apparently forgotten in the urgency of departure. Juniper made no immediate move to examine it, respecting boundaries that transcended simple privacy. When she finally approached, her handling of the item conveyed reverence rather than curiosity. She opened it to the final page, revealing not the weapon schematics Axel had glimpsed, but intricate designs for an advanced prosthetic leg, biomechanical integration systems, paired with neural interface components. The annotations, written in Merrick's precise hand, detailed modifications for improved mobility and reduced phantom pain. The designs explained the limp while introducing new questions about Merrick's background and experiences. What combat situation had necessitated such advanced prosthetics? What classified operations had cost her a limb while leaving her in active command? Juniper closed the notebook, her expression suggesting these questions were not new to her, merely confirmed by physical evidence. She traced the cover with weathered fingers before offering a single statement to the empty diner. Some fight with weapons, others fight to come home. The observation hung in the still air, a truth applicable to Merrick, but perhaps also to Juniper herself. whose knowledge of military protocols and classified operations belied her apparent civilian status. As morning light strengthened, bringing definition to the world outside, the helicopter returned, landing in the empty field behind the diner. 3 figures emerged, moving with the same disciplined efficiency as the operators from the previous night. Juniper watched their approach through the rear window, her posture straightening subtly, as if responding to muscle memory long suppressed but never forgotten. Whatever connection existed between her and the classified world that had briefly intersected with the diner, it clearly extended beyond simple awareness into direct experience. The first rays of sunlight broke through the clouds, illuminating the diner in golden light that transformed the ordinary into something momentarily transcendent. Within this illumination, the boundaries between civilian and military, between server and operator, between past and present, seemed temporarily suspended, reality itself acknowledging that categories were more fluid than commonly understood. What happened next would alter everything that came before, reconfiguring understanding of not only Merrick but Juniper and the diner itself. The approaching figures carried with them revelations that would transform a simple confrontation between bikers and a veteran into something far more significant. The first knock at the back door announced the beginning of this new chapter. Have you ever misjudged someone only to discover they were extraordinary? That quiet person at work or school might have depths you never imagined. Tell us about a time you discovered someone was much more than they appeared, and subscribe to see the shocking conclusion where we reveal Commander Thorne's true mission and why Juniper knows more than she's letting on. Juniper moved toward the back door with measured steps that betrayed none of the fatigue accumulated through the night's events. Dawn painted the kitchen in amber and gold, transforming industrial stainless steel into something almost ethereal. She paused at the threshold, hand hovering over the lock, as if giving herself one final moment to maintain the boundary between worlds. The second knock came, more insistent than the first. She unlocked the door with a decisive movement, pulling it open to reveal 3 figures silhouetted against the morning light. Their civilian attire, practical jackets, tactical pants, boots designed for function rather than fashion, mirrored those of the operators from the night before, yet subtle differences in posture and equipment suggested specialized roles within whatever organization they represented. Leading them was a woman in her early 40s, auburn hair cut in a severe style that emphasized rather than softened the angles of her face. She wore no visible insignia, yet authority emanated from her with the same unmistakable clarity that had surrounded Merrick. Reeves, she acknowledged Juniper, her tone indicating familiarity beyond casual acquaintance. Blackwood, Juniper replied with equal recognition. Didn't expect to see you in the field. Circumstances? Escalated. Blackwood's gaze moved past Juniper to survey the diner's interior, assessing entry points, sightlines, potential vulnerabilities. Report. The exchange confirmed what had been merely suggested by earlier events. Juniper's role extended far beyond that of diner waitress. Her response was immediate and precise, delivered in terminology that would have been unintelligible to civilian ears. Perimeter breach at 22.17. Thorne maintained protocol despite provocation. Initial extraction team arrived at designated interval and departed with primary asset at 22:43. No civilian casualties, minimal exposure. Blackwood nodded, apparently satisfied with this assessment. The bikers departed separately after extraction. Local influence will contain narrative spread. This clinical evaluation of potential security risks completed. Something in Juniper's posture softened marginally. How is she? Operational, Blackwood replied, the single word conveying volumes about Merrick's status. Functional, but perhaps not optimal. Facility compromise necessitated reactivation sooner than medical recommended. Juniper absorbed this information with a slight tightening around her eyes, concern masked but not eliminated. Her leg? The prototype remains functional. Stress testing indicates 87% efficiency. The conversation, conducted with military precision in the golden light of dawn, revealed layers of connection and knowledge previously concealed. Whatever operation had brought Merrick to this remote diner clearly involved technological development beyond conventional military applications, with Juniper herself possessing security clearance sufficient to discuss classified details. Blackwood gestured to her companions, who moved with practiced efficiency into the diner, conducting what appeared to be a systematic security sweep. Their movements were fluid yet thorough, checking areas that would have seemed inconsequential to casual observation, but clearly held tactical significance. "We'll need access to her workspace," Blackwood stated, rather than requested. Juniper nodded once, retrieving a key from a hidden compartment beneath the cash register. Not the standard storage location for diner management, but a secured hiding place designed for covert access. The key opened not a door within the diner, but a panel in the floor behind the counter, revealing a ladder descending into darkness. One of Blackwood's companions activated a tactical light, illuminating a passageway that should not have existed beneath a roadside establishment. "How much did she store here?" Blackwood asked, surveying the opening with professional assessment. "Enough," Juniper replied cryptically. "The essential prototypes and research data are secured in compartment C. The rest is peripheral development materials." Blackwood descended first, followed by one companion, while the third remained above, establishing security positioning at the entrance. Juniper hesitated, momentarily before following, casting a final glance around the diner that had served as her cover for longer than most customers realized. Below, the contrast with the diner above could not have been more pronounced. Where the last stop was a study in worn Americana, the facility beneath was sterile modernity, gleaming surfaces, advanced technology, and specialized equipment arranged with military precision. A research facility disguised beneath peeling linoleum and chipped coffee mugs. Blackwood moved through the space with familiarity, navigating to a central workstation where holographic displays activated at her approach. "Quantum encryption still active," she noted with approval. Thorne maintained protocol despite proximity alert. Juniper approached a sealed cabinet recessed into the far wall, placing her palm against a biometric scanner, concealed within what appeared to be a conventional handle. The cabinet released with a hydraulic hiss, revealing specialized equipment packed in impact-resistant cases. "All prototypes accounted for," she confirmed after a brief inventory, including the neural interface components for the Phoenix series. The revelation provided context for the designs glimpsed in Merrick's notebook, not merely advanced prosthetics, but potentially revolutionary integration of human and technological systems. The implications extended beyond medical application into realms of enhanced human capability that blurred conventional categories of rehabilitation and augmentation. Blackwood accessed the central system, fingers moving with practiced efficiency across interfaces designed for security rather than user-friendly operation. Data streams populated multiple displays, confirming system integrity and information containment. Extraction protocol completed without compromise, she concluded with evident satisfaction. Thorne maintained operational security despite suboptimal conditions. Juniper's response carried a hint of defensiveness beneath professional composure. This location was selected specifically for its isolation and low probability of significant interference. Yet, interference occurred, Blackwood observed neutrally. The Ravagers were not anticipated variables. Local element with minimal intelligence capability. Drake Harlow specifically was assessed as negligible security risk during initial site evaluation. Blackwood's expression suggested skepticism, without explicitly contradicting Juniper's assessment. "Negligible risks accumulate, Reeves. You know that better than most." The comment landed with the weight of shared history, suggesting past operations where such accumulation had proved consequential. Juniper acknowledged this with a slight nod, professional enough to accept valid criticism despite evident personal connection to the operation. The third operator called down from above. "Perimeter secure, transport inbound, ETA 3 minutes. Blackwood initiated a systematic download of all research data, simultaneously triggering what appeared to be a controlled deletion in sequence on the original systems. Standard protocol for compromised research facilities. Preserve the intelligence while eliminating the possibility of unauthorized access. As the process completed, she turned to Juniper with a question that transcended operational concerns. "Will you reactivate?" The query hung between them, laden with implications about Juniper's status, not merely a passive observer or security coordinator, but potentially an active participant in whatever mission had now accelerated due to facility compromise. Juniper considered her response carefully, gaze drifting to a specialized case separated from the others. Her hand moved unconsciously to her side, where, beneath civilian clothing, the outline of a scar mirroring Merrick's became momentarily visible through the fabric. "Contingency Alpha," she said finally, referencing Merrick's parting instruction. 72 hours for secondary team activation. I'm listed in the deployment roster." Blackwood nodded, satisfaction evident despite her controlled expression. "The program needs its pioneers, Reeves, especially now." The exchange completed, they ascended to the diner above, where morning light had strengthened to full day. The third operator had maintained position by the entrance, professional vigilance undiminished despite the apparent absence of immediate threat. Outside, the distinctive sound of an approaching helicopter grew steadily louder, confirming the imminent arrival of their transport. Whatever extraction had begun with Merrick the previous night was now expanding to include the research materials and potentially Juniper herself. The operators efficiently packed the retrieved equipment into specialized transport cases, each movement economical and practiced. Juniper moved through the diner one final time, not cleaning as before, but removing subtle evidence of its function as more than a roadside establishment. Disconnecting concealed security systems, retrieving hidden communication devices, eliminating the accumulated traces of a cover maintained for months. As she completed this process, her gaze fell on Merrick's notebook, still open to the prosthetic designs. She closed it with care that transcended mere handling of evidence, suggesting personal connection to both the item and its owner. The helicopter landed in the field behind the diner, rotors maintaining speed for rapid departure. 2 additional operators deployed, establishing perimeter security with practiced efficiency. Blackwood supervised the loading of equipment while consulting a secure communication device. Command confirmed Zodiac protocol fully activated, all field assets transitioning to operational status. The terminology meant nothing to civilian ears, but clearly signified major strategic redeployment to those within the classified program. Whatever research Merrick had been conducting while maintaining her cover identity had now accelerated beyond the planning stages into active implementation. Juniper surveyed the diner one final time, gaze lingering on the counter where Merrick had sat each evening. Her expression revealed complex emotions beneath professional composure. Not merely a handler seeing off an asset, but a companion witnessing a colleague's departure under difficult circumstances. As she turned to leave, the front door opened unexpectedly. Blackwood and her team reacted with immediate tactical positioning, hands moving to concealed weapons before recognition registered. Drake Harlow stood in the doorway, haggard and alone. His leather jacket was disheveled, his expression haunted by revelations incompletely processed. Behind him, daylight revealed an empty parking lot, his companions apparently scattered after the previous night's confrontation. He froze at the sight of additional operators, understanding belatedly that he had walked into a situation beyond his comprehension. "I just wanted to apologize," he managed, voice stripped of the bravado that had defined him previously. The operators maintained their alert positioning, awaiting instruction rather than acting independently. Blackwood assessed the intrusion with clinical efficiency, determining threat level before responding. "Civilian presence during active extraction," she noted to Juniper, the observation itself a question about how to proceed. Juniper studied Drake with the same detached evaluation Merrick had displayed the night before. Local element, minimal intelligence capability, negligible security risk. The repetition of her earlier assessment carried ironic weight given subsequent events, yet her conclusion remained professional rather than vindictive. Whatever personal feelings she might harbor regarding Drake's treatment of Merrick, operational security took precedence over emotional response. Blackwood nodded once, accepting the assessment. Standard containment protocol. Drake's confusion was evident as one operator approached him with practiced efficiency. "What's happening?" he asked, looking to Juniper as the only familiar face in a situation rapidly exceeding his understanding. "You're about to receive the answers you were so eager to discover last night," she replied without inflection. "I suggest you pay close attention. The briefing only happens once." The operator guided Drake to a chair, his compliance suggesting the fight had entirely left him after witnessing the events of the previous night. Whatever image he had maintained of himself as intimidating force had been comprehensively dismantled by confrontation with actual authority. Blackwood positioned herself before him, all pretense of civilian identity abandoned. Her bearing was pure military command, her voice calibrated for absolute clarity. Drake Harlow, former specialist, 3rd Infantry Division. Honorable discharge following non-combat injury. Current status, civilian, with limited security clearance due to prior service. The recitation of his background with such precision clearly unsettled Drake, confirming that whatever organization these individuals represented maintained intelligence capabilities far beyond local law enforcement. What you witnessed last night was a classified extraction of a high-value military asset, Blackwood continued. Commander Merrick Thorne's presence in this location was part of a sanctioned recovery protocol following field injury and subsequent medical advancement trials. Drake's expression registered growing comprehension mixed with lingering confusion. "The limp," he said quietly. "Her leg." Commander Thorne sustained catastrophic injuries during Operation Blackwater 2 years ago, Blackwood confirmed, without elaborating on the classified mission. Her recovery has involved pioneering integration of advanced prosthetic systems with neural interface technology. The Phoenix program represents the future of military medical science. The explanation, though deliberately limited in scope, provided context for the designs in Merrick's notebook and her presence in this isolated location. Recovery and research combined in a classified program that exceeded conventional military rehabilitation. "Your interference with a recovering military asset has been noted," Blackwood continued, her tone suggesting this notation was far from benign. "However, given your service record and the contained nature of the incident, severe repercussions have been deemed unnecessary." Relief flickered across Drake's features before Blackwood concluded, provided, of course, that appropriate confidentiality is maintained. The implication was clear without explicit threat. Cooperation would be rewarded with freedom from consequences, while failure to comply would trigger response mechanisms better left unimagined. Drake nodded quickly, newfound respect evident in every aspect of his bearing. "I understand. I won't say anything to anyone." "Excellent," Blackwood acknowledged. "Additionally, your first-hand experience with Commander Thorne's capabilities, despite physical limitation, has been deemed potentially valuable for program assessment." Confusion returned to Drake's expression. "I don't understand." "The Phoenix program extends beyond mere rehabilitation," Blackwood explained with calculated precision. "It represents advancement in human technology integration with applications for both injured and non-injured personnel. Your interaction with Commander Thorne provides valuable data on the effectiveness of our protocols in non-controlled environments." Juniper approached, carrying a slim folder that she presented to Drake. "We're offering you an opportunity, Harlow, one that aligns with your previous service commitment while offering advancement beyond your current circumstances." Drake accepted the folder with visible uncertainty, opening it to reveal documentation bearing classified markings, and the stylized insignia glimpsed partially on Merrick's arm, the quantum circuit pattern surrounding a phoenix, symbol of renewal through transformation. "Civilian contractor status," Blackwood clarified. "Security testing for integrated systems. Your background in infantry tactics combined with your, shall we say, confrontational tendencies make you uniquely qualified to assess combat effectiveness of Phoenix prototypes in field conditions." The offer represented rehabilitation of a different kind, not physical recovery, but redemption of purpose, transition from washed-out veteran to participant in cutting-edge military advancement. The symmetry was evident. The man who had mocked Merrick's apparent limitation, now invited to contribute to the program that had enabled her continued service despite catastrophic injury. Drake studied the documentation with growing comprehension. "You're recruiting me? We're offering you the opportunity to serve something larger than yourself," Juniper corrected. Again. The distinction was subtle but significant. Not employment, but purpose. Not job, but mission. The same calling that had once led Drake to military service, now presented in evolved form. Outside, the helicopter maintained readiness, rotors creating a constant reminder of urgency despite the momentary pause for this unexpected recruitment. Blackwood checked her tactical timepiece, clearly balancing operational timeline against potential asset acquisition. "Decision time, Harlow," she stated without pressure, but with clear expectation. In or out? Drake looked up from the documentation, gaze moving between Blackwood's professional detachment and Juniper's more complex expression. Whatever journey had brought him to this moment, from military service to civilian dissolution to direct confrontation with Merrick, now presented a fork in his path forward. In, he said simply, the single syllable carrying commitment that had been absent in his louder proclamations the night before. Blackwood nodded once, accepting his decision with neither celebration nor skepticism. Report to the coordinates in your packet at 0800 tomorrow. Bring only personal essentials. Everything else will be provided. With recruitment completed, operational momentum resumed immediately. Blackwood gestured to her team, who continued loading equipment with practiced efficiency. Drake was escorted outside with his documentation, one operator remaining with him to provide transport to his residence and ensure security protocols were maintained during transition. Juniper completed her final assessment of the diner, ensuring no evidence remained of its dual function as research outpost and recovery station. Her movements were efficient, yet tinged with something like nostalgia, not for the establishment itself, but for the phase of operation it represented. As she prepared to depart, her attention caught on Merrick's notebook, which she had deliberately left on. Follow the counter. She returned to it, opening to the final page where the prosthetic designs were detailed in precise technical language. The notebook's last page revealed something overlooked during earlier examination. Beneath the schematics for the advanced leg was a small photograph, carefully secured to the page. It showed a younger Merrick standing beside Juniper, both in military uniforms that predated their current roles. The image captured not merely colleagues, but companions who had traversed dangerous terrain together, bonds forged through shared risk and purpose. Written on the back in Merrick's precise hand, Phoenix Team, the ones who never existed. Juniper touched the image briefly before closing the notebook and securing it in her tactical pack. Whatever history existed between these women extended beyond professional association into realms of shared sacrifice visible in their identical posture and mirrored scars. Outside, morning had fully established itself across the landscape. The diner, now empty of both customers and secrets, stood as unremarkable as it had appeared before Merrick's arrival months ago. Its purpose complete, it would likely return to its cover function, or be decommissioned entirely, depending on operational assessment. Blackwood completed her final security checks, confirming all equipment and personnel were prepared for departure. Extraction complete, she reported into a secure communication device, proceeding to waypoint Epsilon with recovered assets and personnel. Juniper emerged from the diner, locking it behind her with the standard key rather than specialized security measures, returning the establishment to apparent normalcy as effectively as closing a book. As she walked toward the waiting helicopter, her movement betrayed the same subtle irregularity observed in Merrick's gait, not identical, but similar enough to suggest comparable injury and recovery. The connection between them extended beyond shared mission into shared experience, both women having traversed the difficult terrain between catastrophic injury and continued service through technological integration. The helicopter lifted off with practiced precision, banking sharply before establishing course toward coordinates known only to those with appropriate clearance. Below, the diner receded into the landscape, one unremarkable building among many along the forgotten highway. Inside the aircraft, Juniper accessed a secure communication panel, entering authorization codes that activated a direct connection to command elements. Phoenix 2 reporting for reactivation, she stated, formal language establishing her transition from cover identity to operational status. Requesting immediate briefing on Zodiac parameters and current position of Phoenix 1. The response came not through the communication system, but from a new arrival, Merrick herself, entering from the helicopter's forward compartment. Her movement remained marked by the distinctive gait associated with her prosthetic, yet she navigated the confined space with practiced ease. Briefing in progress, Phoenix 2, she acknowledged, her tone warm despite the formal designation. Welcome back to active status. The reunion, though conducted within operational parameters, contained evident personal connection. These were not merely colleagues, but companions who had traversed extraordinary circumstances together. "How's the leg?" Juniper asked, professional inquiry carrying personal concern. "Functional," Merrick replied with typical understatement before adding, "The new neural interface is exceeding expectations. Response time is approaching natural parameters." She demonstrated by executing a complex movement sequence within the confined helicopter space, balance shifts and weight transfers that would have been challenging with conventional prosthetics. The advanced system responded with fluidity approaching natural motion, technological integration so seamless it became almost invisible. "The research paid off," Juniper observed with evident satisfaction. "Worth every minute of cover maintenance." "Including coffee service?" Merrick asked, rare humor surfacing briefly. "The things we do for operational security," Juniper responded with matching lightness before both women transitioned seamlessly back to professional focus. Merrick activated the helicopter's secure briefing system, displaying tactical information across specialized screens. Zodiac protocol activation was prompted by security breach at the primary Phoenix facility. Unknown actors attempted access to the central research database. The information presented outlined a complex situation involving potential intelligence compromise, necessitating acceleration of project timeline and activation of all field assets regardless of recovery status. "The program goes operational ahead of schedule," Merrick concluded. "All Phoenix teams transitioning from recovery and development to active deployment." Juniper absorbed this with professional composure despite its significant implications. "How many teams are currently field ready?" "3," Merrick replied. "Ours included. Teams 4 through 6 remain in integration phase. 7 and 8 are still in preliminary neural mapping." The exchange revealed the scope of the program. Multiple teams of specially selected personnel undergoing revolutionary integration of advanced technology to extend capability beyond conventional human limitations. Not merely medical rehabilitation, but enhancement of operational potential through targeted application of cutting-edge systems. "And our assignment?" Juniper asked, already anticipating the answer based on their specialized training. "Infiltration and recovery," Merrick confirmed. "Our unique capabilities make us the optimal team for accessing the compromised facility and securing any remaining research assets before they can be exploited." The mission parameters aligned with their established expertise. Covert operations leveraging their integrated systems to achieve objectives beyond conventional team capabilities. The prosthetics were not limitations, but specialized tools enabling approaches unavailable to standard operators. As the helicopter continued its journey toward the classified facility, Juniper and Merrick reviewed tactical information with practiced efficiency, their years of partnership evident in abbreviated communication and shared understanding. Whatever personal connection existed between them remained present but contained, professional requirements taking appropriate precedence. Below, the landscape transitioned from rural highways to more developed regions, civilization emerging in planned grids and structured development. The contrast with the isolated diner was pronounced. Movement from periphery to center, from cover to operational reality, from pretense to authentic purpose. Merrick paused in her tactical review, gaze finding Juniper's with uncharacteristic hesitation. "The 72 hours I mentioned," she said, reference to her parting instruction at the diner. "It was an operational timeline." Juniper waited, recognizing the shift toward personal communication. "Medical recommended a minimum recovery period following my last neural integration session," Merrick explained. 72 hours of systematic adjustment before returning to field operations. Understanding dawned in Juniper's expression. "You accelerated your own recovery timeline against medical direction." "Operational necessity," Merrick confirmed without apology. The compromise left no alternative. The exchange revealed additional layers of their relationship, not merely commander and subordinate, but individuals who monitored each other's well-being within operational constraints, maintaining personal concern without compromising professional requirements. "And your current status?" Juniper asked, medical awareness evident in her assessment of Merrick's condition. "Functional," Merrick repeated her earlier assessment, before adding with rare candor, "but appreciative of having my second activated sooner than planned." The admission that Merrick valued Juniper's presence beyond operational parameters bridged the careful distance maintained throughout their professional interaction. Whatever history existed between these women had forged connections that transcended military structure without undermining it. The helicopter adjusted course, following secure flight patterns designed to obscure its ultimate destination from potential observation. Below, civilization gave way again to less developed terrain, tactical approach, prioritizing security over convenience. They found us once, Juniper observed, returning to operational concerns. They could find us again. Which is why we stop hiding and start hunting, Merrick replied, determination evident in her tone. Phoenix was always intended for forward deployment. Recovery and research phases were necessary, but preliminary. The statement captured the essence of their shared philosophy: adaptation rather than limitation, advancement through challenge rather than retreat from it. The program itself embodied this approach, transforming catastrophic injury into opportunity for revolutionary development. As the helicopter approached its destination, the rising sun illuminated both women with the same golden light that had filled the diner at dawn. In this natural spotlight, their parallel journeys became visible, different paths converging through shared experience toward common purpose. Juniper checked her equipment with practiced efficiency, ensuring all systems were operational before deployment. Her movements mirrored Merrick's earlier demonstration. Fluid and precise despite integrated technology, the line between human and machine blurred through advanced engineering and dedicated adaptation. "Ready for deployment, Commander?" she asked, formal designation acknowledging proper chain of command despite their evident partnership. Merrick nodded once, the simple gesture containing complete confidence in both their mission and their capability to execute it successfully. "Phoenix team, operational." The helicopter descended toward a secured landing zone, rotors slowing as they prepared for arrival. Below, additional personnel awaited: support staff, medical specialists, tactical coordinators, all components of the complex operation now accelerating beyond planned timelines. As the aircraft touched down, Merrick paused at the door, gaze finding Juniper's with rare openness. "Some fight with weapons," she said, echoing Juniper's observation from the diner. "Others fight to come home. And some," Juniper completed, "fight to ensure everyone else can." The exchange captured their shared purpose, not merely personal survival or individual accomplishment, but contribution to something larger than themselves, protection extending beyond their immediate circle to encompass broader security and advancement. Together, they stepped from the helicopter into direct sunlight, integrated systems functioning seamlessly as they moved toward their next objective. Whatever challenges awaited, they would face them as they had faced previous obstacles, with determination, adaptation, and unwavering commitment to their mission. Behind them, the helicopter's rotors slowed to stillness, its journey complete for now, but ready to resume whenever operational requirements demanded. Like the women it had transported, the aircraft existed in constant readiness, pause temporary, purpose ongoing, capability maintained despite intervals between active deployment. In the distance, the facility awaited their immediate objective and the next chapter in an ongoing mission. Whatever compromises had occurred, whatever threats had emerged, Phoenix team stood ready to address them. With their unique capabilities and unwavering resolve, the sun reached its zenith overhead, casting no shadows as Merrick and Juniper walked in perfect synchronization toward their future challenges. Their movement forward was neither hesitant nor hurried, but measured with the confidence of those who had overcome extraordinary obstacles and emerged stronger through integration, rather than diminished through loss. Have you ever witnessed someone overcome incredible challenges and emerge stronger than before? We believe the greatest strength often comes after our most difficult trials. Share your thoughts on resilience and transformation in the comments below. If you found inspiration in Commander Thorne's journey from injury to leadership, subscribe for more stories that remind us our greatest limitations often become our most powerful capabilities when viewed through the lens of possibility rather than loss.